Title, Introduction. Type, Guide. Order, 2. What is Vue.js? Vue is a progressive framework for building user interfaces. Unlike other monolithic frameworks, Vue is designed from the ground up to be incredibly adaptable. The core library is focused on the Vue layer only and is very easy to pick up and integrate with other libraries or existing projects. On the other hand, Vue is also perfectly capable of powering sophisticated single-page applications when used in combination with modern tooling and supporting frameworks. If you're an experienced front-end developer and want to know how Vue compares to other libraries and frameworks, please check out the part Comparison with Other Frameworks. Getting started. Beware, the official guide assumes some intermediate-level knowledge of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. If you're totally new to front-end development, it might not be the best idea to jump right into a framework as your first step. Grasp the basics and then come back. Prior experience with other frameworks helps, but is not required. The easiest way to try Vue.js is using a JSFiddle Hello World example. Feel free to open it in another tab and follow along as we go through with some basic examples. Or you can simply create an HTML file and include Vue as follows. The installation chapter provides more options of installing Vue. Note that we do not recommend beginners to start with Vue CLI, especially if you're not yet familiar with Node.js-based build tools. Declarative rendering. At the core of Vue.js is a system that enables us to declaratively render data to the DOM using straightforward template syntax. We have already created our first Vue app. This looks pretty similar to just rendering a string template, but Vue has done a lot of work under the hood. The data and the DOM are linked, and everything is now reactive. How do we know? Just open your browser's JavaScript console and set app.message to a new value. You should see the rendered example update accordingly. In addition to text interpolation, we can also bind element attributes like this. Here we are encountering something new. The vBind attribute, as you see here, is called a directive. Directives are prefixed with v- to indicate that they are special attributes provided by Vue. And as you might have guessed, they apply special reactive behavior to the rendered DOM. Here it is basically saying keep the element's title attribute up to date with the message property on the Vue instance. Note that in the method we simply update the state of our app without touching the DOM. All DOM manipulations are handled by Vue, and the code you write is focused on the underlying logic. Vue also provides the vModel directive that makes the two-way binding between form and input state a breeze. Composing with components. The component system is another important concept in Vue because it is an abstraction that allows us to build large-scale applications composed of small, self-contained, and often reusable components. If we think about it, almost any type of application interface can be abstracted into a tree of components. In Vue, a component is essentially a Vue instance with predefined options. Registering a component in Vue is straightforward. Now you can compose it in another component's template. But this would render the same text for every to-do, which is not super interesting. We should be able to pass data from the parent scope into child components. Let's modify the component definition to make it accept a prop. Now we can pass the to-do into each repeated component using vBind. This is just a contrived example, but we have managed to separate our app into two smaller units, and the child is reasonably well decoupled from the parent via the props interface. We can now further improve our to-do item component with more complex template and logic without affecting the parent app. In a large application, it is necessary to divide the whole app into components to make development manageable. We will talk a lot more about components later on in the guide, but here's an imaginary example of what an app's template might look like with components. Relation to custom elements. You may have noticed that Vue components are very similar to custom elements, which are part of the web component spec. That's because Vue's component syntax is loosely modeled after the spec. For example, Vue components implement the slot API and the is special attribute. However, there are a few key differences. First, the web component spec is still at draft status and is not natively implemented in every browser. In comparison, Vue components don't require a polyfill and work consistently in all supported browsers, IE9 and above. When needed, Vue components can also be wrapped inside a native custom element. Secondly, Vue components provide important features that are not available in plain custom elements. Most notably, cross-component data flow, custom event communication, and build tool integrations. Ready for more? We have just briefly introduced the most basic features of Vue.js core. The rest of this guide will cover them and other advanced features with much finer details.